The maitre d' slammed the reservation book shut with a crack that echoed like a gunshot through the hushed dining room of Le Chateau Noir, his powdered face twisting into a mask of false regret. "I'm terribly sorry, sir, but we're fully booked tonight. Perhaps try again another time." I watched from the kitchen pass-through, my heart pounding as Owen's broad shoulders stiffened under his bespoke Tom Ford jacket, the one I'd helped him pick out last spring in Soho. He didn't flinch, didn't raise his voice. Instead, he leaned in, his deep baritone slicing the air like a perfectly sharpened chef's knife. "Booked? Or just not for people who look like me?" That moment replayed in my mind 1,000 times over the next 6 months. A scar that never quite healed. Owen Hargrove wasn't just any guest at our Michelin-starred temple to French excess in the heart of Manhattan. He was the tech visionary who'd built a fortune turning algorithms into lifelines for underserved communities. The man whose quiet laugh could unravel me after a 14-hour shift. And I was Jack Riley, the 32-year-old Irish-American line cook who'd clawed his way up from Bronx dive bars to this glittering cage of crystal and caviar, only to betray the one person who saw past my grease-stained whites to the scared kid beneath. Our love had started in the unlikeliest place. A rooftop farmer's market in Brooklyn, where he'd sampled my experimental burrata skewers and called them revolutionary. But that night at Le Chateau, as the staff averted their eyes and the elite diners whispered behind linen napkins, I stayed silent, my hands trembling over a sizzling pan of foie gras. Cowardice pure and simple. And it cost us everything. Owen and I had been together for 2 years, a secret woven into the fabric of New York's relentless pulse. He was the sun, charismatic, unyielding, with skin like polished mahogany and eyes that held the weight of every boardroom battle he'd won against Silicon Valley's old guard. I'd met him during one of those rare off days when the city's humidity clung like regret, and I was hawking pop-up bites to hipsters in Williamsburg. "This isn't food," he'd said, popping a skewer into his mouth, his full lips curving into a grin that made my knees weak. "It's poetry." By the time the sun dipped behind the brownstones, we'd traded numbers, and what began as flirty texts about fusion flavors spiraled into stolen weekends in his Tribeca loft, where we'd cook side by side, him chopping onions with surgical precision, me teasing him about his fancy olive oil from some Tuscan hillside. Our worlds collided in the best and worst ways. Owen's life was a whirlwind of TED Talks and venture capital summits, where he'd fight for black founders in boardrooms that still smelled of entitlement. Mine was the grind. Dawn patrols to Union Square for heirloom tomatoes, nights blurring into blisters from the heat lamps at Le Chateau. The restaurant was my white whale, a bastion of culinary prestige owned by Henri Duval, a silver-haired Frenchman who'd imported his biases along with his escargot recipes. "We maintain standards," he'd say, his accent dripping with disdain, whenever complaints about the all-white waitstaff surfaced. I'd laughed it off at first, chalking it up to expat grumpiness. But deep down, I knew better. Growing up in the Bronx, I'd seen the invisible lines, the ones that kept my Irish Catholic family scraping by while the Upper East Siders dined on silver platters. Still, I chased the dream, telling myself talent trumped everything. That illusion shattered the night Owen decided to surprise me. He'd been in D.C. closing a deal on an app that connected rural clinics to urban specialists, a project close to his heart after losing his mom to undiagnosed diabetes when he was 12. "I want to see where the magic happens," he'd texted, attaching a reservation under a pseudonym. I should have known something was off when the host, a slick Yale grad named Theo, glanced at the name and frowned. But I was elbow-deep in a reduction sauce, sweat beading on my forehead, when the commotion started. From the pass-through, I saw it unfold like a slow-motion car crash. Owen strode in, exuding that effortless command that turned heads in any room. His locks neatly twisted, a subtle gold chain glinting at his collar, the kind I'd fastened for him that morning with a kiss that lingered too long. Theo's eyes narrowed, scanning the book. "Sir, as I said, we're at capacity." Owen's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Capacity? Or is it the name?" Hargrove sounds a bit unfamiliar to your clientele. The room went still, forks hovering, a violinist faltering mid-phrase. Henri emerged from the back, his face a thundercloud, murmuring something in rapid French that made Theo nod vigorously. I froze, ladle in hand, the sauce bubbling over like my rising panic. Part of me screamed to burst through those swinging doors, to grab Owen's arm and pull him into the kitchen. away from the vultures. But another voice, the one honed by years of yes, chef and swallowed pride, whispered that speaking up meant unemployment, meant losing the shot at my own restaurant. Owen's gaze flicked toward the kitchen, locking onto mine through the narrow window. In that split second, I saw the hurt bloom, raw and unguarded. He mouthed something. My name, maybe, or why? Before turning on his heel and walking out into the November drizzle, the door chiming like a death knell. The betrayal hit me harder than any hangover. I didn't chase him. Instead, I plated the foie gras with mechanical precision, serving it to the oblivious elite with a smile that tasted like ash. By closing time, the whispers had turned to outright glee in the break room. Dodged a bullet there. Those types always complain. Henri clapped me on the back, oblivious to the storm raging in my chest. Good work tonight, Jack. Keep the fires hot. I nodded, bile rising, and stumbled home to my walk-up in Hell's Kitchen, where the empty bed mocked me with sheets that still smelled of his cologne. Owen ghosted me for weeks. No calls, no texts. Just a single email from his assistant rescheduling our annual Catskills getaway. I drowned in double shifts, the kitchen's heat mirroring the burn of regret. Friends, the few who knew about us, urged me to fight for it. He's worth more than some frou-frou joint. My buddy Marco, a bartender down the block, said over cheap whiskey. But pride is a cruel anchor, and mine kept me tethered to Le Chateau, even as the reviews poured in praising our unparalleled exclusivity. Spring thawed the city, but not the ice between us. I spotted Owen first, at a gala for emerging artists in Chelsea, his arm linked with a statuesque curator who laughed too brightly at his jokes. My stomach twisted as I hovered near the hors d'oeuvre station, catering the event on a freelance gig. He looked good, better even, his suit hugging the lines I'd once traced with tentative fingers. Our eyes met across the room, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed to just us. The memory of lazy Sundays flipping pancakes, of him reading me poetry from Langston Hughes while I dozed on his chest. Then he turned away, and I felt the fracture deepen. The climax came on a sweltering July evening, 6 months to the day from the rejection. Le Chateau was at peak frenzy, a private buyout by a hedge fund tycoon, the dining room a sea of power suits and diamond cufflinks. I'd been promoted to sous chef, a hollow victory that came with longer hours and Henry's increasingly erratic moods. Rumors swirled of financial troubles. The latest Yelp thread buzzed with whispers of overhyped racism. I was in the weeds, barking orders at the line, when the host radioed up, VIP arrival, handle with care. I wiped my hands on my apron and pushed through to the floor, expecting another Wall Street blowhard. Instead, there was Owen, flanked by a phalanx of sharply dressed strangers. Lawyers, I realized later, and activists from his foundation. He wasn't alone. A film crew trailed him, cameras discreet but unmistakable. The room hushed as he approached the podium, Theo blanching behind it. Mr. Hargrove, Theo stammered. We were honored. Your table is. No table, Owen cut in, his voice steady as steel. I'm here to buy the place. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Henri materialized like a specter, sputtering in French. Owen didn't blink. Your exclusivity made headlines after that night. Lawsuits from former staff, boycotts from every queer and BIPOC organization in the city. But I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to reclaim it. He turned then, his eyes finding mine in the chaos, and the weight of that gaze pinned me in place. Forgiveness? Accusation? Both? What followed was a blur of legal drama and media frenzy. Owen's return wasn't a takeover. It was a resurrection. Backed by his venture capital war chest, he acquired Le Chateau through a shell company, rebranding it as Hargrove House, a non-profit culinary academy training underrepresented chefs from all walks. The Michelin-Star? Gone, traded for scholarships and community suppers. Henri slunk back to Provence, muttering about American savages, while Theo and his ilk scattered like roaches. But the real shock was personal. In the empty dining room that first night under new ownership, with the chandeliers dimmed and the city lights twinkling through rain-smeared windows, Owen found me scrubbing the last of the old brassware. Jack, he said softly, and I dropped the cloth, my throat closing around unsaid apologies. I should have walked out with you, I whispered, the words tumbling like confessions in a confessional. I let fear win. I let them make me small. He stepped closer, the scent of his cologne, sandalwood and resolve, wrapping around me like an old blanket. You did, and it broke us. His hand cupped my jaw, thumb brushing the stubble I'd neglected. But I see you now, Jack. The man who taught me that love isn't algorithms. It's messy. It's human. I bought this place for the city, but maybe for us too. We didn't fall back into rhythm overnight. Therapy sessions in his loft, awkward silences over takeout Thai, the slow rebuild of trust brick by tentative brick. Owen's return shocked the critics. Sure, the Times called it a defiant reinvention, but it mended something deeper in me. I became head instructor at the academy, teaching kids from the Bronx and Bed-Stuy how to wield a knife like a superpower. Owen? He kept revolutionizing the world, one app at a time, but he'd slip into classes unannounced, rolling up his sleeves to plate alongside us. Our ending isn't fairy tale perfect. No grand wedding under the Brooklyn Bridge, no erasure of scars. Some nights, the rejection replays in dreams, a ghost reminding us of fragility. But in the quiet hours as we lie tangled in sheets overlooking the Hudson, his heartbeat steady against mine, I know we forged something human. Forgiveness not as weakness, but as the boldest act of all. In America, where lines are drawn in invisible ink, love like ours isn't just survival. It's the spark that burns the whole damn map.